So what if I told you I spend $9.62 every single day on music? Now, would that be genius or would that be delusional? So what's coming today is I'm going to share a spreadsheet. I'm going to talk about the real results, where I've spent the money and what results I've got, and more importantly, what's worked and what's been a real waste for me. And to do that, I'm going to break down all the expenses I've made in the 6 releases I've done on Spotify over the last 5 years. How much I've spent on the actual recording, on the promotion, on any other costs involved, then look at how much it all adds up to see what I'm spending over that period of time on music. That way you can see the results and how it breaks down over time to what I'm spending on a daily basis. $9.62 is about what it would cost for me to go and have a nice large skim cappuccino and an Anzac Bicky at one of my favourite cafes. But for an American point of view, it'd be around $7 a day in total at the current exchange rate. G'day and welcome to Indie Over 50. My name is John Huggart, and this channel is dedicated to those of us over the age of 50 releasing new original music on YouTube and Spotify. Now, what I'm going to do today is do something I've never, ever done before. I'm going to use this new Riverside software, and I'm going to do a screen share so you can see exactly what I've done in preparing this spreadsheet. Let me press some buttons. Let's have a look at this now. What you should be seeing on your screen is a very simple spreadsheet. Now, what we've got along the top is the 6 releases that I've made over the last 5 years. Eternity I recorded first, although I released it second. Faith was my first one that was actually released on Spotify. It's Faith, Hope and Love. Let the Games Begin, Distraction, Every Cloud, and then finally Could Be Love came out at the end of last year. Down the side there, I've got what I call recording. Now, that includes all the recording costs. So that's production, engaging a producer, engaging artists if I've hired an artist specifically for that recording as well, mastering. Content. You'll see there's not a lot of money spent on content. First of all, it's just how much it costs to load up to your distributor. For me, I use GyroStream in Australia. That cost me $50 local to put it up there, and that's up there forever and distributed through, YouTube and Spotify and all the others. Then in promotion, I break it up between playlisting and advertising. Finally, I've spent a bit on competitions, and there is a link below to competitions, and are they worth it? Is it a waste? For me, I've had a little bit of success in having, gained finalist positions. Certainly the finalist, the grand final for the John Lennon Songwriting Competition with Faith, Hope and Love. Haven't repeated that success with any of my other recordings, although I got to the semi-finals of the International Songwriting Competition with Could Be Love as well. And then, of course, all that adds up, and then we get some total. So let's just start filling it in. Eternity was the first one recorded, so it's very, very low cost to get that recording. It was a lovely guy, lovely producer. It was between the two of us. We just knocked it over the whole thing in one day. I had a very clear idea of the song. He brought it to life with his voice. He played the piano and bass. I played the guitar and drums. Again, content. Maybe I should put this, getting it distributed on recording. I spent a little bit of playlisting on Eternity over the period. Of course, nothing on advertising. And spent, again, maybe I must have put it in for one competition, $28. And see, a grand total of $755. Starts to increase a little bit after that. With Faith, Hope and Love, I spent $2,400 on the actual recording. And again, the same content, $50. $544 for playlisting. Have spent a bit of money there, no advertising still. And did put it into, most of the useful songwriting competitions going around. We Let the Games Begin, spent a little bit more again, but I did put some money into playlisting. No advertising. Competitions, again, put them into the same ones. And then Distraction, 1728 was the actual cost. And by the way, all these different recordings I've got 6 releases out there. I've used 3 different producers. Some I've played on myself, some I haven't played on myself. I've used different singers. Out of the 6, there's probably 4 different lead vocalists. Playlisting with Distraction, spent a bit of money there, so $229. Kind of like backed off the songwriting competitions with this one, and then came to Every Cloud, where I used the same producer that I'd worked with on Distraction. Again, nothing extra in the content, and playlisting, very modest dollars, all Australian, of course, remember, and a couple more competitions that I must have gone into. And finally, Could Be Love. Now, this is a bit crazy here. It's actually, You can see, wow, Could Be Love, $1,500. Now, it did cost a bit more than that. With Could Be Love, I shared that with a mate. We both co-wrote the song together, and he was good enough to tip in. So between the two of us, we were able to put it together for the $1,500. So in reality, that one did cost $3,000. But because we're talking about my habit cost per day, for your information, $3,000, about $2,000 American to record that song. And I put the links below for Project Reverb and the 6 songs that I'm talking about here. Check them out. Now, content here was a bit more because, and I'll come back to why. And then playlisting, yep, spent a bit more money. And this was the first one that I actually spent advertising. So that adds up. And then the competitions, a little bit more, a little bit less. And there you can see that's the magic formula there. Bang! $9.62 per day. Okay, so let's talk about what's not in this calculation. My guitars that you might see in my background here, my Mac and my recording equipment, although I use it for personal daily life as well, same as the phone that I'm recording this on. What else isn't there? Oh, if I went out and jammed with some mates and hired a recording studio or rehearsal rooms. So there you go. In total, it is just over $17,000 over 5 years, $9.62 a day. And how does that compare? Well, compare to what? Well, smoking. Talk about habits a day. Then I saw a Yahoo Australia finance article which said that the average smoker in Australia is spending $21.90 a day on their smoking habit. So puts it in some context. Now, was it worth it? Well, let's just have a look. What are the total streams generated from that spend here? So I'm going to unhide. So you can see in total, just over 60,000 streams across those 6 recordings. Principally, they've come from Faith, Hope and Love and Could Be Love. There's a thing about love, and that's the name of my next recording coming out. Very excited about that. That should be out in the next couple of months. And I've got a bit of a green there. You can see then the cost per stream. The reason I put that as green is certainly not because that's how much money it's making. The revenue per stream is around about 0.004 cents per stream in Australia. So we go from the worst one here, when we look at it, is Could Be Love. It's 11 cents per stream there. That's the one in amber. The investment I've made in promotion that you can see of $2,765. And that includes the advertising spend. Now, that does make it the most expensive, but I've also put it in amber there for a very good reason, because in that expenditure, there's probably about $1,000 I would call was complete waste. One was engaging with an Australian digital agency that reached out to me. I felt so flattered they reached out to me. And look, I don't know that I got any results at all from that investment. So, okay, that's fine. That's life lesson learned. The second one was I did take the hook with Spotify, and I invested, I think, $250 in the Spotify marquee, where when you release a song, it gets promoted and advertised within Spotify. And seriously, it hardly generated any streams at all in those first few weeks of the campaign. So by the time you take out those outliers, bad experiments, and it brings it down to about 0.081 cents. Now, how does that stack up? Okay, let's do a bit of a reveal of this other information here. Okay, what we've got here is the streams per listener over the last 12 months. That's all you can do now with Spotify. It does have some cutoffs on your data. So a lot of this isn't relevant so much, especially for some of those older songs. But what you'll see here is the streams per listener for Could Be Love is close enough to 1.6. So a relatively more engaged. When you're doing a playlisting campaign, it tends to be almost 1 for 1, because everyone's a fresh new listener and they probably don't hang around. One of the other key indicators here is the algorithm. And that's kind of cool. This result here, which is 56% for Could Be Love, and that was only over the last month. Again, they don't give you the stats going back for 12 months, for example. But that's pretty good. Most of the streams now for Could Be Love are free, organic streams. And I will give credit here to the Meta advertising. Well, it's cost a lot of money, but that $1,600 is probably continuing to generate engaged listeners who continue to engage around that song and have probably got it on one of their favorites list. And therefore, the Spotify algorithm is promoting it to play quite regularly. I've also got there on the spreadsheet, you'll see the peak popularity score. I've only captured that for the two biggest songs that I've had, and you'll see that Could Be Love peaked at 22%, which is the beginning of the zone that it kind of gets the Spotify push. If you ever have a look at my the secret Spotify score that you need to know, it's kind of where it starts to get some action in terms of algorithmic push. You really need to get about 30% and more, and that's something I've got to take on board for an investment plan for my next release. Faith, Hope and Love, it got up to a peak of 18%. So a pretty good outcome given that I had never done any advertising. And that's why it's actually been a really, by comparison, a really powerful performer. And that's why you can see that very low cost per stream. And just a bit of benchmarking here, Two Story Media, who I really follow and recommend you check out their videos. They say the benchmarking you should be looking at on these campaigns, 3 to 8 cents benchmark. So I think the fact that it Could Be Love is 11 cents, which is probably 8 cents American anyway. And then if you take out the wasted bits down to around that 8 cents, maybe 6 cents American, it's done okay. Now the question is scale. It's got 20,000 streams or a bit more. So really it's about now how much I choose to invest. And at this stage, I've chosen not to continue investing, and I will have a bit more breakdown on another video about Meta Matters for the investment I've made. You'll see some other stats down at the bottom there. If Spotify is paying out in Australia now 0.004 cents per stream, then with all these streams over 60,000, I generated about $240, which is probably right. And I go into my Jaro account and I see about that amount of money there, and there's a couple of shares and things like that. But that is about the figure. And obviously there's a couple of other income streams coming into that, or there's some Apple revenue. But generally it's Spotify, and that seems to be about right. And it just shows you that I've spent $17,000 to generate $248 of income. So what do you reckon? Was it worth it? I'm going to talk about the things that I've spent money on that I think were really, really good. Number one was I spent money through Fiverr to engage an artist to come up with a lyric video for Could Be Love. And you can check that out on the Indie Over 50 or the Project Reverb playlists on YouTube. I really enjoyed the video. They did a really, really good job. It's all stock footage and then with the lyrics underneath, but it's all fits with the themes of the song. And it's something I'm really proud of. I'm happy to share. It's certainly from an Indie Over 50 perspective, it's not as good as some of the awesome videos I see. And it really inspires me to think about making an investment with the right song of a great film clip, because I know how much I appreciate the effort to create a unique film clip that really stamps the personality of the artists and the band on their film clips. The money I have spent on Meta ads, as I say, I can go to it in detail in another video, but around about $1,000 itself on Meta advertising and about $350 on the management. That's part of the challenge of Meta advertising. Unless you're going to learn and do it yourself and understand the tools and processes, you'll need to appoint a manager to manage the campaign. And the managers are quite expensive. It's probably going to be around $200 to $300 to $400 American per month on top of the spend that you're making on the actual advertising campaign as well. What I've done with my figures here, I engaged someone professionally for 1 month only. And then during that time, they were able to tweak and optimize the campaign, and we both learned something about the process through that. And then the rest of $1,000 was basically probably about $300 during that first month. And then I kept the campaign running without management for another 2 months just to see the results that were continuing to be generated. And they were worthwhile, and that's what's borne out in some of the stats you've seen before. More authentic engagement from an audience now that are typically responding to Could Be Love because of the Spotify algorithm. In terms of the playlists, yes, I've spent most of the money on Groover, probably second maybe it was Submit Hub, and I certainly recommend them both. I mean, they're great from the point of view of really quick feedback, but it's a bit of a lottery and a bit of a lucky draw. Having said that, it's been particularly powerful for Faith, Hope and Love. After that, I probably spent the most amount of money on Die Moon. And Moon, I found, did generate a lot of streams. I just found it was quite a mystery. That just kind of like picked a playlist. It ended up there. All they did from a communication or feedback point of view was just assess your song to say, yeah, we're happy to put it on one of our playlists, but you don't really get any feedback. It's just, yes, we're happy to take your money. Okay, so that's the investments I've made that I was really, really happy with. Here's the 3 things I did that were a complete waste. Number 1, I did a TikTok dance video. Unfortunately, not me, myself, personally, but I engaged through the Fiverr platform. A really cool couple who did this cool, groovy dance that, you kind of like want to imagine your record out there and danced on with TikTok. And I put it on TikTok, 2 absolute crickets. Now, I know that, look, I don't have a social media following. I'm not going to invest in putting out content every day and drip feeding the algorithm and me becoming a blow up as a viral success overnight. But it just didn't work for me. It was happy for them to do the work, and I'm happy for anyone to see my little TikTok video. But I don't believe has been effective for me in this instance. I talked earlier about the Australian digital agency that reached out to me, so that was quite flattering, but it ended up being a waste of money. And that's okay. That's part of life's lessons. And finally, I did speak earlier about the Spotify marquee ad. I would not go near that again. I think if you're a big enough artist, there's another campaign type that you can have access to, but you don't have access to it, certainly for my size of an artist on Spotify. Now, while you're watching, it is free to like and subscribe. And please drop in the comments below any experiences you've had, good or bad, that you want to share with the Indie Over 50 community about investing in your song. And of course, if you've got your own music out there on YouTube or Spotify, then drop your links below. Then that way we can consider for the use on our Indie Over 50 playlist. So at the top of the video, I talked about, is this delusional or is this genius? This spend of $9.62 per day, is this my music habit? Well, it depends on your perspective. I know, and I've heard from lots of artists that have spent nothing. They're really proud and happy that they've engaged with collaborators, partners, friends, colleagues that are happy to put together free content, free production. I think well done. Great friends and great community that you've built. And others that, of course, have done it themselves, just spent the time back on GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools and actually worked out how to do it all themselves. And again, all power to you. So you can do it for free. I guess I'm just sharing all this as context for all of you as to how much it can cost and how much results you can achieve. I've also heard in the comments from people who've spent a huge amount of money on their recordings. One of the comments was an investment of $30,000. I think it was American dollars, 30,000 American dollars to produce a single. Now, that just sounds unbelievable and a lot, but I can also understand it happening. If you go to the best studios and the best producers and session musos and the best mixing and then the mastering, and I can imagine it would totally add up. Sad to say in this instance that the person shared that having spent that amount of money, it hadn't been worth it for them. So I guess what you spend really, depends on how it fits with your ability to spend money at all, and with your values and what your goals are really. I mean, is your investment in music, is it a hobby? Is it a passion project? Is it a business? Or is it just your mission? And I guess for all of us, we come at it from slightly different perspectives. So what do you reckon? Now, I'd love to hear from you. What have you spent money on? What have you wasted money on? Do you think I'm investing wisely or wasting money on a pipe dream? Your song is not written yet. So rock on and keep Indie Over 50.